Welcome to the next edition of the Hudson County Sports Podcast. I'm your host, Jim Haig, and with me today is perhaps the most effervescent guest we've had so far in the years of guests that we've had here on the Hudson County Sports Podcast. He had a great basketball career at St. Cecilia's in Kearny. Of course, the school's no longer there. Went on to play at LaSalle, had a brief stay in pro basketball, and then had a career as a coach. But more importantly now, he's probably one of the most noteworthy and recognized voices in college basketball, doing all the games on CBS and on Fox, and it's my friend Billy Raftery. Raf, how you doing today, pal? Thanks so much for taking some time.
I'm going to hire you as my PR man. I did those nice compliments. I don't get them around my house, so thank you.
Well, quite well deserved. I didn't say how good of a coach you were, Raf. I just said that you were. I got to keep you a little humble, So, all right. Anyway, let's go. Let's turn the clock back. I don't know. No, we won't mention how many years it is. But let's turn the clock back to when you were a boy growing up in Kearny. And were you a typical Kearny kid in the fact that you played soccer in the fall, basketball in the winter, and baseball in the spring?
Yeah, pretty much so. I always tell people that if you didn't play soccer, you weren't considered an athlete in Kearny. And, all of the great names that were before me, like Charlie Dolan, Jimmy Menery, Ronnie Kirby, all of them played pretty much those three sports. Of course, no football at St. Cecilia's, where a lot of those guys may have opted for the football, but that was just part of it. I can remember Joe Palermo, my old high school baseball and basketball coach, who I know you've talked to. Joe used to come down to Tappan Street Playground in like early April to get us to come to baseball practice because we still didn't have it out of our system, we had won the states or not.
Okay. So when you played soccer, what was your position? Being as tall as you were you a goalkeeper?
They have so many changes in the game now with the names, but in those days, I was called a center halfback.
Okay.
You had your goalie, two fullbacks, and then the three halfbacks. So your job was to play both defense and offense, and like be a supplier in a sense to the forwards. Were up front. Dean Brennan was one who was a really talented guy during our era. So they were the ones that were the goal scorers, basically. But it was a great physical training, and you didn't even realize it. In the heat of the summer, we used to go down to Gangolium Narrow or Harvey Field. And if we weren't playing basketball as we got older in a summer league someplace, we go down there and run the pitch, they used to call it.
Yep.
But in those days, we had Irish American Field, Scots American Field, Harvey Field, as well as the Narrow. So most of those, pretty much all of them are gone but Harvey. So, we had ample places. Recreation was always a big deal in Kearny. We all played minor. I played minor league baseball, which is below the little league.
Okay.
Go up in time, sign up for little league. So I remember Primo Motors playing for them, and then of course playing little league baseball, and then Babe Ruth baseball, PAL baseball. As we got old. We were lucky enough. Our team, we lost the state championship to Trenton in Babe Ruth baseball, and we played against Al Downey.
Is that true? Really? Wow. Okay.
I think we lost 2-1 down there in Trenton, and they went to the Nationals way out. I want to say Idaho, which would have been a thrill for somebody from Kearny, as you can imagine. We had not rolled too far from home.
Did you even know where Idaho was when you were 15 years old?
I knew it was a potato. Not for what city or anything else, but anyhow, it was quite a thrill, and it was because we all played a lot of sports, and now, as you well know, it's sort of become restrictive. You almost have to pick a sport in 7th, 8th, 9th grade, and a lot of colleagues attribute some injuries to that.
Yeah.
These injuries where kids isolate their sports and their muscles are restricted. They're not being a physical therapist. I'm not quite sure what that all means, but for us, we really weren't interested in anything else but playing. So, I think our parents had the easiest job in the world, other than the finances, obviously.
Of course.
We were gone early in the morning. We came back. We made ourselves. We didn't have. I used to say we didn't have boys. We had ball fields. That was basically our entertainment.
Right, but were there baseball fields back then, though, Raf? I mean, was everything in Kearny a soccer pitch?
Oh no. We played baseball. They had a Bill Better's Boy League.
Oh, that was a great league. Wow.
Mentioned Jolly Dolan. Jolly was one of the great athletes from our area.
Yeah.
I remember Jolly breaking his arm and his left arm and still pitch in games. And I'm not so sure whether they won the Bill Better Boys Championship because there were so many strong Jersey City and North Hudson teams, but they used to play at Harvey Field. Mm-hmm. I can remember down on Ivy Street, there was, before they built homes, we used to, the old story, divide up sides.
Okay.
We'd have a taped up baseball, taped up bats from the big guys with nails in them.
Right.
We didn't support anything. And then the worst player was in right field, or if you hit it in right field, we didn't have enough players, that was considered an out.
Right.
So.
Because there were no left-handed hitters back then, too, right? No.
No. Not that I remember, although as we got a little older, there were a few.
Yeah. All right. So, was there a point in your life, Raf, that you had to make a decision on what your bread and butter was, or did you realize that when you were in high school because you started and you played right away and you were successful right away?
Well, I think the decision really was senior year, where I was mostly recruited for basketball. So that, in fact, when I went to LaSalle, I used to work out with the soccer team.
Oh, really? Okay.
From the running standpoint, they always needed extra bodies, and we would do that for a couple of weeks, not every day, but whenever they were needed, they were going to have a scrimmage and they needed some bodies. But pretty much then it was senior year. It was pretty well known that I was leaning towards basketball.
Well, you were breaking the county scoring record, one that stood for 25 years before you started going nuts. And what was it about LaSalle that intrigued you back then? And were there any other schools that were in the running? Like, say, for instance, how in the world did Seton Hall let you go?
Well, that's a long story. Richie Regan, who I love, there were a lot of influences. The coach at LaSalle, Duty Moore, was renowned.
Okay.
Palermo, Pete Caruso. There were a lot of older people, let's put it that way. And I was comfortable there. We visited. My mother and father came down. It was small, comfortable, and they brought me to a Big 5 game between St. Joe's and I had never been into Bill. Well, I shouldn't say never, because I was at the Garden. And I've never seen the enthusiasm and juice in a building
like the Palestra.
Like a Big 5 game.
Yeah.
I had a lot to do with it, but.
And did you run around that when you were at the St. Joe's LaSalle game and somebody scored the first basket? Did you run around collecting all the toilet paper to bring it back home to Kearny?
Well, I would tell you what, we could have used it. My mother wouldn't have minded that.
Yeah.
Those were just, fun days. And it's just going backwards a little bit.
Sure.
I remember Bill Martin at the CYO Center.
Oh, what a great man. Oh, gosh.
And Joe Ward, they started this mini basketball in the county. And Kearny got involved. And we used to, every Saturday morning, we'd have mini basketball. Ralph Borges was the head of the Board of Ed, but also at one time director of recreation.
Sure was.
He started the league, and I can remember going to the CYO Center where we lost, we played at 10-foot baskets. And of course, the mini basketball was lower.
8-foot baskets, yeah.
And that's actually how I got to meet Vinny Ernst.
Well, he was Mr. Biddy, and that Jersey City team with Vinny Ernst and Ernie Tolentino and
Marty King.
Well, yeah, and they won the national championship. I guess I'm going to say 1955, 56, somewhere around there. They won the national championship in Biddy, and Dr. Ernie Tolentino talked about the fact that they went to the White House, and not only did they meet Eisenhower, but they met Vice President Richard Nixon. And here it is, 12-year-old kids from Jersey City getting to meet two presidents of the United States. I mean, that's pretty good.
I don't know, was Haig in charge when they came back in with the talks?
Yeah, he was gone already by then, unfortunately. Yeah, he was Kenny beat him out, so he was in retirement by that point. Yeah.
Kenny probably wouldn't talk to them because they were down there with the Republicans, you know.
Yeah.
But so Vinny and I ended up later playing in the summers, well, I was going to say down in Philly, we also ended up playing, but, in Jersey City, we played in Newark and Tenafly. And then when we were juniors and seniors, we were actually going to plan to go to college together.
Oh, really? Okay.
And it ended up where we went up to Providence, and we actually played, which in those days was a violation, but we always wanted to play when we visited campuses. And we played with Joe Mulaney, and I loved the visit, but Providence didn't turn me on and Vinny on. So we ended up parting our ways, and of course Vinny ended up the MVP at the NIT his sophomore year.
Right.
Providence won it with John Thompson and Jim Haddock for two great centers in those days.
And Vinny, God rest his soul, is the only two-time MVP in the NIT. The only person to ever win the MVP twice in the NIT is Vinny Ernst.
Yep. Got the backstory, kid.
Yeah, no. So I got to know Vinny pretty well when I coached Biddy in Jersey City. Him being Mr. Biddy, he used to come to all the gyms and talk about how he was how good of a player he was, and I certainly would sing that praises. I mean, how many times you get a guy from Jersey City become the two-time MVP of the NIT, the only one ever, and he's from Jersey City. So.
The other thing was Vinny was drafted by the Celtics, and he really had a legitimate chance of making the team. Didn't, but that's when Cousy retired, and he really had a great camp. Of course, Heinsohn was in his corner, pushing him, and there was nobody better at running a fast break. As we all know from that era, Celtics were, the epitome of fast break basketball. And, he didn't make it. There were only 8 teams in those days, too.
Right.
And you didn't have the ABA where you could go hone your skills maybe or even do well and stay there. So he ended up trying coaching for a while and then ended up doing well in insurance, etc. And the rest is history. Yep.
All right, so let's go back to what was the defining moment for you, Rafter, that made you want to go to LaSalle? What was it? Was there one thing at all? Was there and who was the coach at LaSalle then? It wasn't Gola, no?
Judy
Moore, okay.
I just think it was the comfort zone.
Okay.
I felt good about it. It was big time basketball. People in our area probably couldn't relate to what the Big Five meant.
No.
But it was just an incredible atmosphere, a doubleheader. You played, it was just like a big evening for fans and followers, just the average public too. But, Philly was a hotbed of basketball, so that was, again, a decision that I was delighted with. There were a lot of schools that I visited that, the one school I never visited, but that really was in my mind was Notre Dame. I thought they did the best recruiting job.
Okay.
but in those days you never visited, you never took advantage, or your family would let you of a trip just to go to visit the school. So the schools I visited were the Cross, Providence, Georgetown, obviously Seton Hall. I used to go to their games. LaSalle, and I actually visited Maryland. A good friend of mine, Larry Pearlstein. Those days also, that was our home, and that's the way it was going to be. But Larry really worked hard to get us to visit. And I do remember Father Murdy went down there, and they were telling us, how they had their own non-denominational chapel, and that, we'll get Father up to 7 o'clock slot for Father. Anyhow, I guess whatever happened, they forgot to wake up Father Murray. He was his mass at 7 o'clock. Those were fun days. I mean, I had never really flown any place. I had never really been in these top-notch restaurants. Broadway plays, I had never gone to any, and through the recruiting process, you sort of, there was another world out there besides what you were, accustomed to.
Okay.
For me, I met some great people, and we all, Joe and my parents made sure that I sent a note or spoke to everybody who recruited me. It was just like one of those formalities that let them know you appreciate their interest. And, it turned out for me, because of the people I met, played with, had an opportunity to spend time with in terms of adults and pushing me in a direction. I think the key thing after, not all the accomplishments in the world you would like to have.
Right.
They didn't quite work out. Went to the Nick camp and went through the summer, and then in the fall ended up getting cut. But my senior year, we were going to play St. Louis in the Garden in the NIT on CBS, and Bob Wolf, who was, a Ford Frick Hall of Fame announcer,
Sure,
did all the Knicks during our youthful days.
Yep.
Championships, Rose Bowl, Army, Navy, longtime Washington Senator announcer.
An incredible man. Incredible. Yeah.
Bob visited the campus to prepare for his broadcast, and while he was down there, our duty asked me to take him to dinner. And when we finished dinner and he had gone to practice, he said, "I don't know what you're going to do with your life, but when you finish playing or coaching, you should consider broadcasting."
Really? So he was the first one to put that in your mind, then, huh? That's pretty cool.
Anybody say that?
Yeah, that was pretty cool. So
with college kids, if I'm ever talking to them, I always tell them, make sure you take advantage of every social gathering and say hello to people and talk to people, because you never know who can push you or assist you or direct you into some area that you never even considered in terms of aspiration.
Sure. Okay, now go back to high school a little bit. Did you ever think that your scoring records that you had at St. Cecilia's would have lasted as the Hudson County scoring record for as long as it did before Ricky Apodaca came by and broke your record? I'm going to say almost 40 years later. I mean, did you ever think that would last as long as it did?
Well, there's an asterisk because Richie was a lefty.
Yeah.
In fact, our son Billy used to play with him in the AAU circuit.
Oh, is that true? Really? Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, heck of a talent.
Oh.
Really good player. But you know what? Because of Joe and my house, we never even thought of records. I mean, it was for people like you and Freddie Cramwell and, the sports writers of the world that would chronicle these things. But, you were all about doing the best you could, hoping your team won.
Yeah.
So even when it was done, I mean, it was like never a sense of, I was doing something I loved doing. And with it, because, God gave you some talent, you worked a little bit on it, and things worked out right. But the numbers were never so is important to me is and certainly in my house, it was meaningless.
Yeah.
Than my parents. And, there was pride, certainly, and, Franny and Rita were great supporters, but there was never like a conversation at all about a game, a highlight. It was just, what happened to you today at school, Francis? Rita? That academic report you had. So I think it was a very leveling experience that I didn't know that anything was that big a deal as it may have been to other people.
Well, it was Franny and Rita were the ones going and getting the academic awards. That was not down your end of the stick. You were basically worrying about putting the ball in the basket, right? You let your brother and sister take care of those things, right?
Thank you for demeaning my academic credentials.
Is there an academic credential? I don't know. I don't even know. I'm only kidding. I'm just, I'm.
Well, that's better.
Yeah. All right. So you talked a little bit about getting to try out with the Knicks and getting cut, but soon after that, you started playing ball in pro ball in the Eastern League. And what was that like? Driving all over the place and getting paid, and worrying about where you're going to be. One game you're in Scranton, the next day you're in Albany. You're all over the place playing basketball for like $100 here and there.
Well, Jimmy, I actually never did it.
Oh, you never did?
There was talk about me doing it, but what actually happened was prior to that thought crystallizing, I came home and I was the director of recreation in Kearny.
You were? Oh, wow. I didn't know that. See, there's something I never knew.
For a couple of years. And
did you replace Ralph Borges?
Yeah, replace Ralph.
Wow.
And then when I was doing that, I was going to Seton Hall to get a master's. But when I got cut by the Knicks and came back, one of the guys, B. Carson, working with me, was a soccer referee, and he had just refereed a Fairleigh Dickinson-Madison game.
Okay.
And the AD / basketball coach, soccer coach, lacrosse coach was Bob Shields.
Oh, sure, yeah.
Just a super guy. And he was lamenting to Pete that in another week he had to start
basketball, and he didn't have anybody coach the team?
Right. And Pete said, well, Bill got cut. And next thing I know, I'm up there. I think I got 2,500 part-time. And then I got my master's, and they raised me. I got $5,000 to be the golf coach, the basketball coach, the sports information director, classes, and I never had more enjoyment because Bob was single, I was single, and we became great friends. So whether it was golf or social or rooting for one of those teams, it was a great experience for me. So it was. I never really.
Well, it forced you to improve your golf game a little bit, then, didn't it?
Well, it's not very good. I mean, I was a chapter ahead of the kids I was talking. Teaching, I should say.
Yeah. And the only thing about a slice you knew was the pizza that you would get on Kearny Ave, right? You didn't know much about slices and hooks and those types of things. Right?
Well, exactly.
So anyway, so then you were and how many years were you the coach at FDU?
I was 5 years there.
5 years, okay. All right, and were you at that point? Were you content? Did you say to yourself, "Okay, this is what I'm going to do for the rest of my life," or were you aspiring to move up?
I think a lot of what we do is in God's hands. I mean, I was not looking to covet somebody's job or anything like that. It just happened where here we are, whatever years later. I guess 10 years later, and Richie Regan decides he doesn't want to coach, but even though I didn't go to Seton Hall, we had maintained a great relationship. And he called, he said, would you ever like this job? And I went, oh boy.
Wow.
So, anyhow, that's how that started.
Okay. So did you go straight to Seton Hall as the head coach?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. And was that at that point? Was that a quantum leap for you to go from D3 basketball at Fairleigh Dickinson to D1 at Seton Hall?
Well, basketball, as we know, is basketball. But
Right.
now you're talking. They had been restricted in terms of schedule during the '60s because of the scandal.
Okay.
And now they were going to open it up, so we opened up playing everybody we could. The big rivalry obviously is Don. Don had the great run the NIT. Kennedy, God bless him.
Right.
McMahon and that great Webster, Grant, Lecky.
Harry Laurie. Yeah, sure. Pete O'Day. Those were great teams. Yeah.
Harry, what a great player he was.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't want him guarding me for a living. I'd be broke. Anyhow, we started playing 4 or 5 teams because of Red Holzman and Ed Donovan in the garden. So we overscheduled and, we got through it. And I always tell the kids of that era, we struggled out of the gate first couple of years. Excuse me. And that they were the foundation of Seton Hall being asked to become a member of the Big East.
Sure.
And the respectability at those 10 or 11 years of those kids, put it in the position that, this is a respectable program that believes in their basketball or has a philosophy in their basketball.
Okay. And how much fun was that for you to be coaching at Seton Hall at that time when you were now? It was almost at that time, it was the beginning of the rebirth. Seton Hall had some really good times when Walter Dukes was there and Workman, and now they had a little bit on the downside, but then you started to pick it up a little bit when you got people, some big time recruits like Glenn Mosley and Darryl Devereaux, and then the pièce de résistance was when you won the recruiting war to get Danny Calandrillo to come to Seton Hall, and how much fun was that to be able to be.
Like Mel Knight, Gary Cavallo.
Oh, that's right. I forgot about those guys too. Yeah.
John Ramsey was a big time recruit. Just really a talented kid. He ended up being drafted by the Knicks and the Pacers. He ended up in Europe for almost 15 years, making a heck of a living. But there was a lot of kids who were anonymous to the public because we didn't have the social media.
No.
Just the write-up after the game, basically. But, there was so many. Kenny House is another kid from the early days. I mean, you could go on and on where, really solid kids. And
Paul Lape.
Yeah, Paul Lape was a great recruit for us.
Mm-hmm.
Just so many talented kids that helped keep this thing moving in the right direction. And, as I mentioned, the Big East was forming. And we were philosophically not ready for it.
Okay.
We were okay playing Georgetown once, Syracuse once, but not twice Connecticut, twice Syracuse. We didn't have the depth. Obviously, we didn't have the wherewithal in terms of the academic support system that was later developed, the training facilities, the dietary things that happened, but that was all part of the building of the Seton Hall program as PJ came in and took it to that top level that none of us ever were. Not that we ever. You always hoped you could have achieved that, but PJ just took it to a level that was extraordinary.
Absolutely.
Kevin, there's a lot of names in between now, but Willard has maintained like an incredible level of basketball. Kevin's just a master coach and just does his job. You don't have to give him a pat in the back. He's a professional coach. So there's a lot of history prior to these people, but and a lot of great players. That's what Kevin's been able to continue and sustain.
There's no question he's done a very good job. But after a while, what was it, 11 years, and then you decided you just didn't have the fire anymore in coaching. You want to try something else?
I loved what I was doing, and we had like two I guess seasons where we were just okay, mediocre would be good, and now we had that whole group together, really solid. Dave Gavitt had started the Big East.
Right.
He had been in 2 seasons, and Dave said to me, "Would you, we had talked about this once before. Would you ever consider being the not play-by-play, the color analyst to replace me?" Dave had done the games.
Right.
That you've got 2 days to let me know.
Oh, so that's what happened? Is that Dave Gavitt said, you wanted you to replace him as the color commentary for the Big East game?
Right.
Wow.
Yeah, because it had started to grow and escalate the league. He didn't have time to be, going to isolated games.
No.
So, anyhow, I called him the next day and said, "I'll take it." And it was just one of those things. I knew we were not going to change at Seton Hall in terms of the financial input that was going to be necessary. And that did take a couple of years for PJ too, because he struggled at the beginning.
Big time. Yeah.
Explain to the university, look, this is what everybody's doing, and you got to be up to speed here. So I did that. I was fortunate enough to be in banking for like 15 years. Bill Raftery, Ed Knapp, Bob Cassiola. They were the most enjoyable years of my life. They let me go on the road to do all these games, and in those days we had the accounts we had were the Giants, the Jets, the roadways, Parkway, Turnpike, casino, schools, government departments. So we were like salesmen versus the real banker kind of a deal. And we were very lucky, great group of people, and I was able to get my feet on the ground a little bit, be able to take care of business at home and let the kids get to schools that they wanted to go to. So basketball has certainly been an unbelievable vehicle for me and our family. I've been blessed, really. But I always tell people that the greatest place to grow up was Kearny.
Yeah, huh? Okay.
I loved every moment. I never felt like I was deprived of anything. I had access to any sport I wanted, with people who cared about you. And I had one of the greatest coaches of all time in Hudson County that probably a lot of people don't know, and that's Joe Palermo.
Yeah.
And he was like with it at a young age, and he's with it at an older age. He just understood life and how to deal with young people.
Well, he had a great career in terms of coaching both men and women, both at the highest level in terms of coaching high school and then in college. And he went to Kane and had a great career at Kane, and then he went to LIU and was part of those teams that ran up and down the floor, and he adapted with that, and he had a great career with Mike Grinelli, coaching the women at St. Peter's. And then he went back to coaching the men at St. Peter's with Bobby Leckie. And I mean, he's a bit, you talk about basketball lifer. That's what Joe Palermo is. I mean, he's just.
What was amazing is that great St. Peter's team, he was their freshman coach.
Yeah.
Leckie, Laurie, McMahon, and all those guys. They loved him.
Oh. I don't think there's anybody that ever played for Joe that has ever said anything bad about him. Everybody loves him from top to bottom. There's no question. Everybody loves him. He's a different kind of breed, but everybody loves playing for Palermo. He was just a great guy. So, all right. So now you get into broadcasting. Did you think at that time that this is going to be a whole different part of your career, or was it just going to be at that time just a part-time gig that you would do, like say 1 or 2 games a week?
When you start something like that, you don't know the business at all. You know that it's enjoyable. It keeps you attached. It keeps you part of the fabric of college basketball. And after a couple of years, I'm saying, I really like this. And boy, there can be some big names coming out of pros and college coaching and playing that they've got a marquee attraction. And I just decided that I was just going to put my head down, mind my own business, be as prepared as I could be. And then, from the get-go, the first year, I did the 9 Mondays, which for the Big East, that was $700. That's what I left Seton Hall for with 3 kids.
Oh my God, is that true? For $700, you left 3 kids and a full-time job. Oh God.
Bank job. I held the bank up. I got the bank up, and they were good to me, which had it. And then NBC had college basketball. Then gave me 4 games for a little more.
Okay.
And then ESPN the same year gave me 23 to 25 games that kicked in a little bit more. And then the next year, which would be 82, 83, I started with the New Jersey Nets.
Sure.
Signed with CBS, and I signed with ESPN. And the only one that stopped was the Nets after 23 years. But I've been either ESPN or Fox on the cable side and CBS since. So at some point, like in the middle 90s, the labor, not the labor, I should say, the difficulty of, doing the bank stuff and doing the travel, I just, formally ended up just doing the basketball.
Sure. Okay. Now, and of course, this is part of your trademark, part of who you are. Did you know all right away that you said, okay, if I'm going to make a name for myself, I'm going to make a mark in this, that I've got to be, as flamboyant, as personable as you are as a person, or did that just come naturally? Like all the little the little slogans that you say, like onions and Miniman, and of course the ever so popular Send It In, Jerome. So I mean, did these all just come to you, or did how did they all come about?
Just doing games and spontaneous reaction to situations. Being out after 11 with a place that has a neon sign and hanging with a lot of characters and a natural arrival and trying to do things in a succinct fashion. No, I never thought of I'm going to be Jerry Lewis or whoever else you might think brings a little levity to life. But no, it's just do your job, and all of a sudden you don't know your personality until you keep doing something for a while. You're on air.
Yeah. You had to know who your personality was already by that point, Raph. Everybody knew you were a character. I mean, I
never thought of it as that. I just thought of it as, this is the way you are.
Okay.
I'm that way. So everything was a fluid recognition of what was going on during the course of the game, and a way of maybe dressing it up a little bit or making it more interesting, but never a forethought of writing something down and I'm going to use this here.
Okay. Because now that there are kids that are in this business, or even young coaches that try to become broadcasters, they want to have catchphrases like you have. They figure that that's their way of making a name, and you basically invented it, and now you're saying it just came off the top of the cuff. That's pretty amazing,
Sometimes I just say them because I'm supposed to say them. I bore myself too.
All right, so then if that's the case, where did onions come from? Is that a schoolyard legend thing?
Never. Iron Eagle tells me, who's my partner for many years with the Nets.
Right.
Yes. Ian said we were doing an Orlando game, and Kevin Edwards made a corner 3. And it was an era when the Nets weren't one of those bad years,
Right.
And he made a 3 to win the game, and I uttered that for the first time. I had no idea,
Okay. And did Ian look at you and go, "What's that?" Like did he applaud it right away? Obviously, you can't say what you meant to say onions were for, but you. Cojones, you could probably say, but I don't know whether or not you could.
Once more on ESPN, and they told me that I shouldn't use that, and then writers started to use it in their articles.
Right, of course.
And, the next thing I know, ESPN said it's okay to use it.
Okay.
So,
That's because you were you were making a name of it, and then have to be able to tell. I mean, it's probably the most single play that you're remembered by, although it's been quite some time now. But I would imagine everybody who comes up to you in the street or say, "Hey, how you doing?" and then they go, "Send it in, Jerome." And that is, obviously it's talking about Jerome Lane and then slam dunk that he broke the basket at the University of Pittsburgh. And how did that all come about?
I was in the right spot. None of us had ever seen this. I think Darryl Dawkins had done it once in high school. Mike Gorman and I were doing the game. He made the call. There's a lull, and I just popped out.
Wow.
Not like you can't preconceive that happening.
No.
Particularly in that era. Now with the snapback and the flexibility, it probably won't happen too often unless it's an old gym or something. But those things are just part of being in the right seat at the right time.
Right? Were you fortunate enough at all to trademark that slogan, like say Pat Riley trademarked three-peat and has now made millions off of three-peat? Were you able to trademark "Send It In, Jerome" as your own?
I think our son Billy we trademarked a couple.
Okay.
I don't think that was one of them. I think
really no. Okay.
I think with the kiss, I think we did, and whatever. But we really didn't take advantage of it very much. So it was just one of those things. Okay, we'll try it.
Well, if with the kiss is one of those that is yours, then I owe you a lot of money, because when I do the PA announcing at NJIT in Rutgers, Newark, and somebody throws one in, from way out and it goes in off the glass, I say, "With the kiss." So I'm stealing one from you, Raf. After all these years, I could steal one. As long as I have your permission, that's all that matters. As long as you're going to give it to me, So after all these years, I can get something out of it. But do you like having that idea that you're known for these catchphrases and slogans?
It's not whether you like it or not. It's just something that transpires when you do games. A number of games and people listen in, and I'm, listen. It's a nice compliment, and I'm honored that people, can share that experience of loving the game and. Hopefully not detracting from it, but enhancing it for them. It's just keep it going, kind of. God's been good to me, and I'm very fortunate. The game of basketball, I always feel I haven't worked for a living. It's just an amazing.
That's a good point. And you're still going strong, which is the most important thing. All right. Was it a disappointment at all that you had to step away from? Oh, you didn't get a chance to step away on your own, but that you were no longer involved with the NBA and that you were strictly doing college, or was that almost like a blessing for you because now you could just concentrate on college and you didn't have to worrying about covering the NBA as well?
The best period for me was the late '80s when CBS had the NBA, and so we had the college season with the Nets, and then we went into the NBA playoffs, and just to watch that level was incredible. And the burden was not, in my mind, a difficult one, but in a way, it really was a blessing. I love the beat of the NBA. If you go to all the games, you realize how good these guys are.
Right.
The high level performance that they put out there each and every evening, and yet it was a blessing in the sense that I was just able to do the college. I could spend more time on it, and as it turned out, it pushed me in the right direction, really. But I don't regret any of those days with the Nets and those people in that franchise, and there were a lot of good years too.
Sure.
The early '80s when they beat Philly after Philly won the championship. With Michael Ray and
Right, and they came down 2-0. They were up 2-0 in Philly, lost the two games in the Meadowlands, and then went down to Philly and won Game 5. That was amazing. That was just amazing. Yep.
And then two Final Fours. Well, I shouldn't say Final
Final
Fours.
Four, two NBA championship games. Yeah, series.
Unfortunately, the Lakers with Shaq and Kobe and Duncan down in San Antonio was just a little too much for him. But
Right.
What a way to go when you watch Jason Kidd run a fast break and Curry Kittle's finishing. And I always say that if Jason Kidd had played his career in the Garden, there'd be a statue. He did something that was incredible.
Absolutely. Oh God. And then the talent that was on that team and the energy that was on that team with people like Jason Williams and Keith Van Horn and Kenyon Martin and Richard Jefferson and wow, there was a lot of talent and a lot of good guys on that team too as well. A lot of really good guys to be around. That was a fun team to cover too as well. And I went to a lot of those games. I was there, mostly all of them, especially the games at home. So, although you and I had we had our moments on the road too as well, but we don't have to go into that. Yeah, so. Right. Okay. So now, as you know, the game has totally evolved, totally different. Where when you first started doing announcing, it was a game that was played inside out, and now it's outside in. And everybody either wants to shoot the three or there's the dunk. There's no such thing as a mid-range jump shot anymore. And is that just the way the game has evolved over, say, the last, 20, 25 years?
So you asked me?
Yeah. Yeah, I'm asking you about the way the game has changed.
Has changed the philosophy of coaches and the attraction of J.J. Redick's,
right?
Steph Curry and people like that. But it is interesting that you still have to handle the basketball, dribble, drive, break the defense down, and now you can actually kick it back. Versus kicking it for a 15-footer, you can kick it back 25, 30 feet, and guys can make it. But it's just a sign of the times. The big man has to be versatile. He's got to make jump shots now. He's got to drag his guy out of the way a little bit.
Well, we don't see the really good big guy anymore. Like if you think about it, for 50 years, it was Chamberlain and Russell, and then it was Jabbar, and then it was Shaq, and then it was Duncan, and it was like you had one after another of big guys. And now you look at the game of basketball, both in the NBA and in college, and you don't see really good big guys anymore. And it's strange. Like even the really good big guy is the Greek Freak, and that's I don't even see that. He doesn't play the five certainly, so it's really strange how the game of basketball has evolved.
I think the attendance speaks well of it. The interest, the ratings. Unfortunately, since last March through this summer, this is something none of us would have ever expected.
Right.
Having people deal with it, the mortality and everything else is just something that incredible experience, the craziness of it all. But I think the game's in a good place.
Okay.
I think the kids really work at it. I mean, the condition, they're more acrobatic, obviously, than our era.
Sure.
They're more flexible. They're just amazing how, regardless of the size, they're handled. During my time, we really worked on our left hand, and a few people could use the left very well, but not the numbers that are now. I mean, these kids with all their ball drills and the fundamentals, that a lot of people do complain about fundamentals in terms of the overall picture, but the individual skill level is just utterly amazing with these young people.
Okay. All right. Now the way it stands right now, Raph. I mean, it's really hard to predict what's going to take place later on this year. In your heart of hearts, do you even know or have any idea of what may transpire, or do you just hope that we get a vaccine and hope that we can get back to life the way we normally have it, so we can have a real college basketball season come November?
Well, the idea would be a vaccine. I'm
Right.
not sure of that. But just judging by what the NBA is going to be doing, I think there'll be national broadcasters on site down in Orlando. And I think a lot of the teams will have their play-by-play guy in a studio or back in their arena doing it off a monitor. So, that's NBA. And then hopefully they can get this thing under control. And, I just feel terrible for what transpired for just kids who were in class to enjoy their senior year and their prom.
Right.
And they're going to see some of their buddies. Then you go into the college where kids didn't have a graduation, or do the things that normal college kids like to do, and then the opportunity. Even Genzo from Villanova comes to mind, where he was a really good basketball player, and he got an opportunity in the NCAA to show people how good he was. And he went from being a guy, well, down the road he'll be a decent NBA player, to being, I think, the 17th draft pick.
Yep.
But the way he played, and I think that happens a lot during the course of the past few years.
Yeah, the kid from Virginia is the other one that I think of. He went all the way up to becoming a lottery pick. I can't think of his name, but it's the power forward, and he skyrocketed up the charts. And I think the reason being is because he had such a strong NCAA tournament. So yeah, it has been a stepping stone for others as well, no question. You agree with me there? So I mean, that's the shame.
I just you're putting a ribbon on it.
Yeah.
I think the whole hope is that it gets back to normal. It's very important for a lot of reasons. I'm just seeing now the finances that are going to be lost for certain institutions for those buy games.
Yep.
What it's going to do to conferences that are dropping, major universities dropping the Olympic sports, or the soccer team, the volleyball team, the wrestling team. So for all of those reasons, they're going to be deprived of opportunities for kids to be in a sport that they love, cherish, and work at. The whole thing is thrown it into a chaotic situation. So hopefully, these brilliant scientists and firms can come up with something that will take care of everybody, as well as these young athletes too. But I don't have. None of us really know what is going to happen in terms of college basketball. I think you got to get through football first.
Right.
Then the next step is maybe they'll be a little closer, God willing.
Yeah, hopefully, because it's crazy to where it is right now. All right, last couple things from me, real quick. You had a very emotional, tough time this past year, in the fact that you lost both your brother and your sister in a span of about 6 months. And talk just a little bit about how the family relationship that you had with both your brother Franny and your sister Rita, who was a nun, and both of whom had to be driving forces in you growing up as a kid, and to lose both of them as quickly as it did this span of 6 months apart had to be really tough on you emotionally.
Well, the three of us were really blessed to have great parents, who really cared and thought that education was extremely important. And Franny, and God bless him, was superintendent of schools before he retired. And of course, Rita, was president of St. E's for 16 years. And it was a very simple, lovable home atmosphere. As something like this happens, you don't expect it. I mean, we saw Rita at Christmas, and of course, prior to that, Franny had, a tough little road there near the end of his life. dealing with his situation, but
Right.
an empty feeling that. So now you just think good thoughts, and we all have regrets, that maybe should have done this, should have done that. But on balance, I was fortunate to have such a great support, from them, whatever we did. And Rita had a great impact on us with me running around. She was a great assistant to Jerome with the kids.
Right.
Not in one of those dictatorial ways, but she had a great feel for situations, and she was really balanced. But it was just a wonderful home. We just, I envy people who have difficulties, whether it's with one another or separation or divorce. But we were, in the midst of greatness when it came to running a family, and my mom and dad. And I think it impacted all of us.
Beautiful. All right, and then the last thing for me is you've obviously been blessed to have a wonderful wife who is perhaps, thank God she looks young, because she keeps you looking young. Because if you got Joni on your arm, you look younger every day. But what's it been like for you to have somebody as supportive and as loving and as wonderful as your wife Joan is?
Well, I think first thing I wonder how she put up with me.
I don't know either.
And she's just a great strength, and just always there for all of us at all times. And she came from a great family. Mom and dad were just special people, and she carries it on with our kids. She did everything for them. Always available to take them to events, see them grow in their careers, and provide strength, a source of strength to make sure that schooling was important. And we're very lucky that the kids were able to go to schools where they wanted to go to, and major in what they wanted to. And now a couple of them have their own families, a couple are single, but it's all the benefit of Joni being home with them, and being there when they were needed, when she was needed, to counsel them, support them, give them a lot of love. So all of us have been very blessed.
Great lady, and I love every time we're together at Strulowitz and Gardjulo. Got to throw Carl a little bone here, because he's gonna, but he takes care of both of us.
I'm old enough where Danny took care of me.
Oh wow, okay.
Yeah, so I know Carl's a really talented man, and does so many good things for people that are non-athletes.
Yep.
And great charitable, giving, loving man. He's just a special guy.
I owe my life to him. He's like God, to me, he's like God on earth. He really, I seriously, I owe my life to him. Okay, real quickly, how is your son doing? That is the filmmaker who made that great documentary about you and your life, and came back to Kearny and filmed all over the place in Kearny and did that great documentary.
Fine. Unfortunately, like anybody out there in Hollywood, things are on hold with all the dilemma.
Right.
But he's got a bunch of projects that he's working on, and just waiting for everything to break. He's did the one on Massimino, Rowley.
Right.
Did Angels in Exile is one that he won awards in Africa when he was living there for 4 or 5 years. Trying to help disadvantaged kids. But Billy's doing great. Kelly's obviously great. So Smissy's got her kids, and Missy's got hers, and they're all moving in the right direction. So we've been, just we're very fortunate and blessed.
Beautiful. Well, Raf, I really appreciate you taking the time to talk to me. It's always a pleasure to talk to you, pal, but this is a special type thing, because, a little trip down memory lane, and you got a lot of fans here still in Hudson County that still love you to death, and present company included. And it's always a pleasure when I get a chance to see you at a game, and just if it's 2 seconds just to shake your hand and say hi, it means so much to me. So I really appreciate you taking the time to talk to me on the show, and I will see you somewhere down the road. And best to Joni, and always the best to you.
Jimmy, thank you very much, pal. Congratulations on the show, and Thanks for your friendship too.
No problem. That part is very easy, Raf. There's no question. So thanks again.
Okay.
Take care. And that was my special guest this week was the legendary Bill Raftery, who gave us a nice little trip down memory lane to talk about my new home. Although I got to say, my home is always going to be Jersey City. Kearny is where I put my head on a pillow every night, but still, I feel like I'm part of Kearny because I lived here so long, and Bill Raftery is Kearny's native son. So, anyway, thanks so very much for listening to this week's Hudson County Sports Podcast. I'm Jim Haig, and thanks to my executive producer, Johnny Haig, who always does a very good job in helping me put together these podcasts. Without him, it would never have happened. So thank you very much, and hopefully you get a chance to listen to other podcasts on YouTube, Facebook, or Twitter. Thanks so much for listening. Have a great day.